I didn't call the police on my daughter-in-law because I'm petty, I called them because she texted me the world's dumbest confession. 1 hour earlier, while I was pruning roses on my Brooklyn Heights terrace, my phone pinged. Borrowed your old ring for the gala. Grandma, hope you don't mind. I stared at the message, then at the sun catching the East River, and felt a calm I hadn't tasted in 10 years. I typed back, have fun, dear, set the phone down, and dialed the only man who's ever seen me truly angry, my lawyer. Harold Benson. Harold, I said, my voice smooth as cold glass. File a theft report for inventory item 847. He paused. Evelyn, are we? The pink diamond, I said, 5 carats, French setting, appraised at 3 million last spring. On the other end, papers shuffled, a pen clicked, and the gears of my late husband's contingency plan rumbled to life. Mario Carter, God rest him, didn't leave me flashy cars or loud money. He left me secrets, a collection of art and jewels documented to the last comma. Wrapped in insurance, and tucked behind a Monet reproduction in my bedroom. To most people, I'm a 71-year-old widow with a sensible cardigan and a senior discount at the matinee. To Vanessa Reed, my daughter-in-law, I am an obstacle with arthritis. Vanessa swept into our family a decade ago in a cloud of perfume and ambition. Red dresses, green dresses, handbags that cost more than my first apartment, always purchased by my son Michael, who mistook volume for love and attention for devotion. From the moment she moved into my brownstone, my name became a household chore. Evelyn, steam my gown. Evelyn, decaf, extra hot. Evelyn, your slippers are loud. Somewhere along the line I stopped being a mother and became a service bell. You'd be surprised how much a woman learns while people talk over her head. I learned Vanessa's charity friends prefer gossip to dessert. I learned Michael thinks silence is diplomacy. And I learned that if you're going to be treated like furniture, you might as well be the safe built into the wall. The ring she borrowed wasn't in my usual jewelry box, the sweet wooden thing with the ballerina who spins to Tchaikovsky. No, that box hosts decoys, brooches with more sentiment than value. Pearls for church, a cameo my sister swears is haunted. The pink diamond lives where Mario designed it to live, behind the painting. In a velvet cradle beside a laminated inventory list. Item 847 circled in his firm, careful hand. He used to say, if money is loud, keep it quiet. I took that to heart. For 10 years I let Vanessa believe I was poor in everything but patience. This morning I watched her slip into my room without knocking, open the wooden box, and smile like a cat at an open birdcage. She held the ring up to the light, probably thinking it was a charming antique, nice enough for a selfie. Not nice enough to ask permission. I didn't shout. I didn't scold. I watered my roses and composed my face into the expression I wear at boring funerals. And then I waited for the ping that arrived on schedule, the text. The proof. The rope. 30 minutes. Harold said now, returning to the line. Insurance notified. NYPD will recover the piece at the venue. Do you want to press criminal charges or simply retrieve the property? My hands trembled, not with age, but with relief. For a decade I had been the ghost at my own table. The woman asked to eat in the kitchen when Vanessa hosted serious people. For a decade I had listened to, maybe it's time for a retirement community. Evelyn, as if my garden didn't pulse with 40 years of roots. I thought about last Christmas, when Vanessa unwrapped an Italian handbag and handed me a discount scarf with the generosity of a queen feeding pigeons. Harold, I said, let the system do what the system does. I'll decide about charges when I see her face. He exhaled the way men do when they realize the battle plan wasn't theirs. Understood. I'll meet you at the hotel. I ended the call and looked across the living room at Mario's portrait, him in his navy suit. Me behind the camera the day we bought this house. You timed it right, love, I told the paint. Then I fixed my hair, slipped on my low heels, and tucked the laminated inventory into my bag like a church program. A woman can be invisible for only so long before she remembers she owns the lights. My phone rang again. Michael. Panic crackled through the speaker. Mom, what did you do? The police just walked into the gala. Vanessa's sobbing. People are filming. I let him finish, then spoke gently, the way you talk to a child who's just learned stoves burn. I told the truth. Darling, they're recovering my property. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere near the river. I closed the door behind me and started down the stoop. Shoulders back, chin up, a woman on her way to collect a debt 10 years in arrears. The first person I saw in the hotel lobby wasn't Vanessa in cuffs. It was the detective who already knew my name and the private investigator who'd been tailing my daughter-in-law for months. The Plaza Hotel glittered like it always does. Chandeliers dripping crystals, men in tuxedos pretending they're kings of New York. But that night, the gossip wasn't about hedge funds or Hamptons getaways, it was about my daughter-in-law. Before I even stepped fully inside, a woman in a sequined gown whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "That's the mother-in-law. The one with the $3 million ring." Heads turned, eyes widened. For once, I wasn't the invisible widow, I was the headline. Standing near the check-in desk was a woman with a badge clipped to her blazer, Detective Karen Garcia, sharp-eyed. Mid-40s, the kind of woman who looked like she'd seen every trick in the book and didn't mind adding a few of her own. Next to her stood Victor Hall, a private investigator in a slate gray suit, flipping through a leather folder like it was a menu. "Mrs. Carter?" Detective Garcia asked, striding toward me. Her tone was professional, but her eyes lingered with something closer to curiosity. "Yes," I answered, straightening my posture until my spine remembered it used to dance. She gave me a small nod. "We have your daughter-in-law in custody. She claims you allowed her to take the ring." I pulled my phone from my purse and held up the glowing screen like a holy relic. Text message. She admits she borrowed it. Without asking. "That, detective, is theft where I come from." Victor cleared his throat politely. "Mrs. Carter, I've been following Vanessa for 6 months. I think you'll want to see this." He opened his folder and revealed glossy photos, Vanessa in pawn shops. Vanessa exchanging velvet boxes for envelopes of cash. Vanessa laughing with a jewelry appraiser over champagne. My knees nearly buckled, not from weakness but from fury. For 2 years I thought I was misplacing things, an earring here, a brooch there. I even wondered if my mind was slipping. No, Vanessa had been stealing from me while whispering to my son that I was forgetful. Detective Garcia lowered her voice. "Mrs. Carter, the charges tonight could escalate. We're talking grand larceny, multiple counts. Do you wish to proceed?" I glanced across the lobby. There she was, Vanessa Reed, still in her golden gown. Makeup streaked down her cheeks. Cuffs glinting like unwanted bracelets. My son Michael hovered nearby, gesturing wildly, trying to convince anyone who'd listen that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. For 10 years she made me hide in my room when her friends came over. For 10 years she called me the old lady, as if my name were too much trouble. And now? Now she looked like a spoiled child caught with her hand in the world's most expensive cookie jar. I turned back to the detective, my voice steady as granite. "Proceed." Vanessa saw me then. Her eyes widened with hatred and desperation. "Evelyn, you can't do this to me," she screamed, her voice echoing through the marble lobby. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, whispers grew into a roar. And for the first time in a decade, I smiled. What Vanessa didn't know was that the $3 million ring was only the beginning, and the evidence Victor carried would unravel every secret she'd been hiding. The air inside that lobby was so thick with scandal you could have bottled it and sold it on Fifth Avenue. Guests in gowns and diamonds clutched their martinis, pretending not to watch while secretly recording every second. Vanessa, usually the queen of posture, was hunched and trembling, mascara carving rivers down her face. Michael rushed toward me, panic twisting his features. "Mom, please, this has gone too far. Tell them it's just a misunderstanding. Vanessa thought it was an old ring. She didn't know." I looked at him, my son, the boy I once rocked to sleep. Now a 40-year-old man begging on behalf of a thief. "Michael," I said softly, "ignorance is not an excuse when you help yourself to something that isn't yours. Ask the detective. The law doesn't care if you knew or not." Detective Garcia gave a curt nod. "Your mother's right. The ring is insured, cataloged, And registered. Its value is documented. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a felony. Vanessa's voice broke as she screamed from the sofa. Evelyn, you spiteful witch, you've always hated me, you set me up. I let out a small laugh. Surprising even myself. Set you up? My dear, you set yourself up when you walked into my room and decided my jewelry box was a free-for-all. You texted me your confession before the police even got in their cars. Victor Hall, the private investigator, stepped closer and spread his photographs across the concierge desk like a poker player revealing a royal flush. Mrs. Reed, these show you pawning jewelry belonging to Mrs. Carter. 12 separate occasions, valued around $45,000 total. Would you like me to read the receipts aloud? The blood drained from Vanessa's face. Michael snatched up a photo, his hands shaking. Vanessa, this is you. You told me my mother was just losing things. That her memory. Her shriek cut him off. So what if I sold a few things? She never wore them. She doesn't need them. She has too much. I straightened my shoulders, my voice cutting through the chaos. And that gave you the right to steal? To lie? To convince my son that his own mother was losing her mind? Silence rippled across the lobby. Even the chandeliers seemed to stop swaying. Detective Garcia looked at me again. Mrs. Carter, we'll need your formal statement at the precinct. You'll have the option to press charges on all counts. I locked eyes with Vanessa, who sat crumpled in gold silk like a broken statue. Detective, I'll be pressing every single charge. Tonight, my daughter-in-law learns exactly who she underestimated. Michael's lips parted as if to argue. But no words came. He just stood there, holding a photograph of his wife pawning my jewelry. His world unraveling one receipt at a time. But what none of them expected, what even I didn't know, was that Vanessa's thefts weren't just about me. She had been running something far bigger. And the FBI was already on her trail. FBI? The word nearly slipped from my lips when Victor leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Mrs. Carter, he said, tapping the folder with one long finger. This isn't just about your jewelry. Your daughter-in-law has been moonlighting as an information broker for thieves. She photographs valuables at charity galas, memorizes floor plans, and sells the intel. We've already linked her to burglaries in 6 states. I blinked. For 10 years I'd let Vanessa treat me like wallpaper. And now I learned she'd been wallpapering the city with crime. Detective Garcia gestured toward the doors. We'll transfer Mrs. Reed to holding tonight. The bureau will want her. She's not just some spoiled wife with sticky fingers, she's the keystone of a theft ring. Michael staggered back as if someone had pulled the rug out from under him. No, that's impossible. Vanessa isn't, she couldn't. Victor slid another photograph across the table. Vanessa, in a cocktail dress, laughing beside a known art fence from Chicago. Another photo, her leaning over a jewelry case in Boston. Phone camera glowing. Another, her exchanging envelopes in a dim cafe. Michael pressed his palms to his temples. She told me those trips were for charity committees. I felt a bitter laugh bubbling up. Charity, all right, charity for herself. Vanessa shot to her feet, cuffed hands rattling, fury flashing through her tears. You think you're so clever, Evelyn? You sit in that dusty old house with your antiques and your smug smile, without me. Michael would still be your little lapdog. I made him a man. Really? I snapped, my voice slicing through the lobby noise. Because from where I'm standing, you turned him into your alibi. Gasps rippled from the onlookers. Phones angled higher. Somewhere, I imagined hashtags being born. $1 million mother-in-law. Detective Garcia raised her hand. That's enough. Mrs. Reed, you're under arrest for grand larceny, multiple counts of theft, and suspected involvement in interstate criminal activity. You have the right to remain silent. But Vanessa wasn't silent. She thrashed against the officers, her golden dress wrinkling like foil. Evelyn, you'll regret this. If I go down, I'll take everyone with me, you, Michael, the whole Carter name. The officers hauled her toward the doors, her voice echoing against the marble like a curse. Michael sagged against a column, pale and shaking. I walked over, placed a hand on his arm, and whispered, Son, you didn't marry a wife. You married a storm, and tonight, The storm just hit landfall. What neither of us realized was that Vanessa had already left behind a trail of secrets in our very own house, and the FBI was about to uncover them. By the time the squad cars pulled away, sirens fading into Manhattan's night, the plaza lobby felt like a theater after the curtain dropped, whispers lingering. Eyes following me, people pretending to be shocked when really they were thrilled. Society loves a scandal, especially when diamonds and betrayal are involved. Detective Garcia handed me her card. Mrs. Carter, the Bureau will want to search your property. We believe Mrs. Reed may have been using your home as a base of operations. My home? The words burned in my chest. That house was Mario's and mine, a sanctuary of 40 years. The idea of Vanessa treating it like her personal crime office made my blood run cold. Victor Hall, ever calm, slipped his folder back under his arm. Don't worry, ma'am, they'll be respectful, but you should know, we've already uncovered communications between Mrs. Reed and an appraiser in Philadelphia. She was preparing to move much larger pieces. Paintings, sculptures. Michael staggered forward, his face the color of paper. Are you saying my wife, was planning? Victor nodded gravely. Yes, she wasn't just dabbling, she was escalating. Michael's knees gave way, and he dropped into a leather chair like a man twice his age. He buried his face in his hands. I didn't know. God help me, I didn't know. For a moment, I almost pitied him, almost. But then I remembered every dinner where he sat silent while Vanessa dismissed me. Every family holiday where he looked the other way. Every time he let her chip away at my dignity. He hadn't known about the crimes. Perhaps, but he had known about the cruelty. I bent close, my voice low and sharp. Michael, ignorance is a luxury, silence is complicity. Tonight, you pay for both. His shoulders shook, but he didn't lift his head. Detective Garcia touched my arm. Mrs. Carter, we'll coordinate with you tomorrow about access to the house. Expect agents by mid-morning. If Vanessa hid anything there, we'll find it. I gave a curt nod. Then I'll be waiting, with the kettle on. Lord knows agents need coffee as much as lawyers. That earned me the faintest smile from Garcia. Even Victor smirked, though politely. For the first time all evening, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not joy, not relief, something stronger. Control. As I stepped outside into the sharp New York night, cameras flashed, and someone shouted, Mrs. Carter, how does it feel to catch your daughter-in-law stealing millions? I paused, let the cold air wash over me, then answered simply, it feels like being seen again. But I had no idea that back at my brownstone, behind doors I thought were locked tight, Vanessa had already left behind evidence that would shake me more than the stolen ring ever could. Morning came heavy with sirens and headlines. My face, wrinkled, resolute, was splashed across the New York Post under the title, Grandma Outsmarts Glitter Thief Daughter-in-Law. I nearly spit my coffee. Grandma? I'm 71, not 91, and I'd like the record to show I can still climb my own stairs without oxygen. By 9 o'clock sharp, 2 black SUVs pulled up in front of my Brooklyn Heights brownstone. Out stepped agents Karen Brooks and Michael Smith from the FBI. Suits pressed so sharp they could cut glass. Detective Garcia trailed behind them, carrying a clipboard thick with warrants. Mrs. Carter, Agent Brooks said, her handshake firm, thank you for cooperating. We have reason to believe Mrs. Reed may have stashed materials here, documents. Photographs. Possibly stolen property. May we proceed? I opened the door wide. Agents, be my guests. Just don't trample my hydrangeas. Mario planted those the year we bought this place. And I'll haunt anyone who kills them. They smiled politely, but within minutes my quiet home buzzed with agents snapping photos, dusting shelves, and opening drawers I hadn't looked into in years. Michael hovered in the kitchen, pale and restless, like a man awaiting sentencing. Victor Hall arrived too, folder in hand as always. He lowered his voice. Mrs. Carter, I should warn you, Vanessa was thorough. If she used this house, it won't be obvious. She was smart enough to hide in plain sight. Good, I muttered, crossing my arms, because I've spent 10 years being invisible. Let's see how she likes it when her secrets are dragged into the light. An hour later, Agent Smith called from the basement. "Mrs. Carter, could you come down here, please?" Basement. My stomach knotted. That space was Mario's old workshop. Dusty but sacred. I hurried down the steps, Michael trailing behind me like a shadow. When I reached the bottom, I froze. A section of the far wall, behind Mario's tool bench, looked wrong. Fresh paint over old brick. Agent Smith tapped it, and the hollow sound echoed. With a crowbar and a few hard pulls, the bricks gave way. Inside was a hidden alcove no bigger than a closet. Stacked neatly within, binders, envelopes stuffed with cash, dozens of photographs of other people's homes, jewelry close-ups, floor plans, even snapshots of alarm panels at parties I remembered attending. Michael gasped. "Oh my God, she used this house as her headquarters." I pressed a hand to my chest. Rage and betrayal flooding through me. In Mario's workshop? She built her empire of lies in the one place he cherished most. Agent Brooks lifted a folder labeled in Vanessa's tidy handwriting, "Targets." She flipped it open, revealing names, families from Manhattan to Connecticut, each with notes on their valuables. "Mrs. Carter," Brooks said grimly, "your daughter-in-law wasn't just dabbling. She was orchestrating." And when they turned to the last page of Vanessa's file, I saw my own name, Evelyn Carter, listed as the final target. With one chilling note beside it, "Remove permanently." The words blurred for a moment as my eyes locked on that page. Target, Evelyn Carter. Note, remove permanently. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. My own daughter-in-law, who'd spent 10 years calling me old lady and shoving me aside at dinner parties, had written me down like I was a line item on her to-do list. Michael staggered backward until his shoulder hit the basement wall. No, this can't be real. Vanessa, she's selfish. Yes, but she wouldn't. His voice cracked. She wouldn't plan to. Victor's tone was cold as marble. She would. Mr. Carter, criminals escalate. First jewelry, then fraud. And when someone becomes a threat to their schemes, they remove the threat. Detective Garcia flipped through the folder. Her brow furrowed. This isn't vague paranoia. These are detailed notes. Look, times Mrs. Carter Gardens alone. The schedule of her weekly grocery trips. Even what medications she takes. My stomach turned. 10 years of being invisible. Yet all along Vanessa had been watching me like a hawk, not because she cared, but because she was hunting. Michael pressed his palms to his face. God, Mom, I swear, I didn't know. I never would've. I cut him off, my voice sharper than I intended. No, Michael, you didn't want to know. That's different. He flinched, and for once, didn't argue. Agent Brooks slid the file into an evidence bag. Mrs. Carter, we'll need to relocate these materials. But you should be aware, this moves the case from fraud and theft into conspiracy. Attempted harm against a family member? That's serious. I swallowed hard, my hand resting on Mario's old workbench. He built furniture here, fixed clocks, polished the garden tools we used every spring. And in that very place, Vanessa had plotted my disappearance. I whispered to the empty air. To Mario's memory, you were right to make me patient. You were right to make me watch. Because now I'll bury her with the very evidence she thought she'd bury me with. The agents packed up box after box. Cash bundles, flash drives, photographs. The deeper they dug, the more it became clear. Vanessa's web stretched further than any of us imagined. As we climbed the basement stairs, I paused halfway up, gripping the railing, the weight of revelation pressing on me. For 10 years I thought she wanted me out of the living room. Out of family dinners, out of my own home. But the truth was darker. Vanessa wanted me out of this world. And that night, when the FBI showed me what was hidden on Vanessa's secret flash drives, I realized her crimes weren't just personal, they were criminal enough to topple New York's glittering elite. Upstairs, my living room had transformed into a war room. Agents spread Vanessa's binders across my oak dining table, Mario's table. The one she once made me eat away from. Laptops glowed, evidence bags stacked like a grim buffet. Agent Brooks plugged a small flash drive into her computer. This was hidden inside a hollowed-out hairbrush in Mrs. Reed's vanity. She explained, encrypted, But our techs cracked it. You'll want to see this. The screen filled with thumbnails, hundreds of photos. Not just of jewelry and floor plans but of people, socialites, philanthropists, hedge fund spouses, their addresses, security codes, bank account notes. Vanessa had built a dossier on New York's glittering elite as if she were curating a museum of greed. Detective Garcia scrolled through one folder, her lips thinning. These aren't random. They're organized by event, fundraisers, auctions, gallery openings. She even labeled which families left their alarms off during parties. Victor Hall muttered. She was an entire criminal operation disguised as a +1. I stood behind them, arms crossed, feeling a strange mix of rage and awe. 10 years she'd made me feel like a relic. Yet all along she was the one sneaking antiques out the back door. Michael sank onto the couch, his face ashen. I don't understand. How could she do all this under my nose? In my own house? I gave him a long, steady look. Because you wanted peace more than truth, Michael, and she knew it. Agent Smith clicked another file. Up popped a spreadsheet titled, Projected Sales, Quarter 3. Rows of items, paintings, sculptures, heirlooms, each with estimated street values. Beside my name, under, Final Phase, Vanessa had typed, Liquidate property. Secure guardianship. I felt my knees weaken but forced myself upright. Guardianship, she was trying to have me declared incompetent. Garcia nodded grimly. It fits with what we've seen in the emails. She'd been documenting your forgetfulness. If she could prove you were senile, she'd get control of your estate. Once you were in a home, she could sell everything. Michael buried his face in his hands. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I reached out and touched his shoulder. Sorry is a start, but what matters is what we do next. Agent Brooks closed the laptop and looked at me squarely. Mrs. Carter, you're not just a victim in this case. You're a key witness. With your help, we can take down an entire theft network that's been bleeding wealthy families for years. I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. For a decade I'd been the invisible woman at the edge of every photograph. Now the spotlight was on me, and I wasn't afraid anymore. I'll help you, I said. All of it, every detail. If she wanted me invisible, then I'll be the one who makes her unforgettable. The agents exchanged glances. Victor smiled faintly. Then let's bring the whole thing down. But before the FBI could move on the rest of Vanessa's network, she made one last desperate move from behind bars, a phone call that would test how far I was willing to go. The following evening, as I was folding laundry I hadn't touched in days, because who does laundry when federal agents are excavating your basement, my phone rang. The caller ID read, Rikers Correctional Facility. For a moment, I considered letting it ring out, but something in my gut told me to answer. Mrs. Carter? The voice was shaky, thinner than I'd ever heard it. Vanessa. I didn't say anything, let her stew in silence. Evelyn, please, just listen. I know you hate me. I know what I did was unforgivable. But you don't understand, these people I was working with, they're worse than me. If I don't give them something, if I don't keep feeding them, her breath hitched. They'll kill me. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my heart thudding, but my voice stayed even. So after stealing from me, humiliating me, and planning to erase me, you're calling for my sympathy? She choked out a laugh. Not sympathy, strategy. You don't know how far this goes. Evelyn, judges, collectors, even a banker uptown, you think I was smart enough to build this on my own? Agent Brooks's words from yesterday echoed in my head. She wasn't just dabbling. She was orchestrating. But what if Vanessa was right? What if she was just a cog in a much larger, nastier wheel? Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're the only one who can still protect me, she said, voice trembling. If I cooperate, they'll bury me in prison. But if I don't cooperate, they'll bury me for real. For 10 years, she'd made me feel like a ghost in my own home. Now she was the one who sounded haunted. I'll think about it, I said flatly, then hung up before she could beg again. Michael, who'd been standing in the doorway listening, stared at me with wide eyes. Mom, what if she's telling the truth? What if there really are bigger players? I folded the towel in my hands deliberately, corner to corner. Then we let the FBI handle it. I spent 10 years letting her run my house. I'm not about to let her run my conscience. Michael sank into a chair, rubbing his face. I don't know how much more of this I can take. I patted his shoulder. Son, you don't get to collapse now. Not when the real storm's just starting. Because within 24 hours, the FBI would confirm Vanessa's claims, and the names on that secret list would shake New York's high society to its very core. By the next afternoon, my dining table looked less like a place to serve roast chicken and more like a crime drama set. Agent Brooks spread out documents with the precision of a surgeon. Detective Garcia perched on the edge of a chair, pen tapping nervously. Victor Hall, always composed, scanned one page after another like a hawk reading sheet music. Mrs. Carter, Agent Smith began, his voice heavy. Vanessa wasn't lying. We've cross-referenced her files with open investigations. The names she kept? They match families already hit by professional theft crews over the past 3 years. He slid a sheet toward me. Columns of names leapt off the page, people I knew. The Strattons, the Callahans, Mrs. Peterson from last year's cancer benefit. Women I'd exchanged polite smiles with over shrimp cocktails, now exposed as victims of the same network that nearly gutted me. Agent Brooks pointed to another name highlighted in yellow. This one's important. Judge Hollingsworth, senior justice on the appellate court. His townhouse was burglarized last spring, rare coins stolen. It was written off as a random hit. Now we know Vanessa provided the layout. Michael let out a low groan. A judge? My God, she really was in deep. I stared at the paper, my fingers trembling, not from age this time, but from rage. For 10 years, Vanessa treated me like her personal maid. All the while, she was sipping champagne with these very people, memorizing their homes, selling them out. Unbelievable, I muttered. She weaponized high society gossip, turned luncheons into reconnaissance. Garcia nodded grimly. She's not the mastermind, but she was the perfect infiltrator. Respectable enough to be welcomed, shallow enough to be overlooked. Victor tapped a page with his pen. Look here, notations on alarm codes, even Wi-Fi passwords. She wasn't just casing houses, she was feeding crews in real time. The room went quiet. I felt my stomach tighten. Vanessa had lived under my roof, eaten at my table, sneered at my garden, and all the while she was building a criminal empire brick by stolen brick. Michael rubbed his temples, voice breaking. Mom, what happens now? What happens to us? I set my jaw. What happens now is that she pays. Every name on that list deserves justice. And I'll make sure they get it. Agent Brooks leaned forward, eyes steady on mine. Mrs. Carter, if you're willing to testify, if you're willing to go public, your story could blow this open. You wouldn't just be a victim. You'd be the key to dismantling an entire interstate theft ring. I thought of Mario, of the years I let Vanessa treat me like a relic. And then I thought of the women on that list, sipping wine while wondering why their heirlooms had vanished. I straightened in my chair. Then I'll testify. Let the world see that the invisible widow isn't invisible anymore. But I didn't realize that stepping into the spotlight would make me a target again, and this time. Vanessa's powerful allies weren't afraid to strike back. The knock on my door came just after midnight. Sharp, deliberate, the kind of knock that doesn't ask, it demands. I shuffled to the peephole, heart thudding. On my stoop stood a man in a dark overcoat, hat pulled low, too polished for a burglar, too casual for a cop. Something about the way he stood, arms loose, eyes hidden, made my skin crawl. Mrs. Carter? His voice was smooth, like silk over broken glass. We need a word. I kept the chain on the door. Who's we? He smiled faintly. Friends of Vanessa's. Let's just say, she had obligations. And now that she's out of circulation, we expect you to honor them. My stomach clenched. Obligations. As if betrayal was some sort of family heirloom I'd inherited. I don't think so, I said, my voice sharper than I felt. He leaned closer to the crack. Careful, ma'am, you've made yourself visible. Headlines, cameras, testimony, that kind of light burns. And it attracts shadows. You don't want to end up another accident in tomorrow's paper. For a heartbeat, I felt 71, frail, alone. Then I remembered Mario's words, if money is loud, Keep it quiet. If danger is loud, get louder. I snapped the door shut, locked every bolt, and grabbed my phone. Within 10 minutes, Detective Garcia and 2 uniformed officers were at my stoop. Garcia's jaw tightened as I described the man. They're testing you, she said, trying to scare you off before trial. Which means you're a threat to them. And that's good, but it also means we'll need to put you under protection. Michael, woken by the commotion, stumbled down the stairs, pale as chalk. Protection? You mean she's in danger? Garcia's eyes flicked to me. She already was. Tonight just confirmed it. I crossed my arms, forcing my voice steady, then let them come. For 10 years I let Vanessa treat me like a ghost. If her friends want to haunt me now, they'll find I don't scare easy. Garcia gave me a look, half respect, half warning. Bravery is good, Mrs. Carter, but smart bravery is better. The next morning, when the FBI moved me into protective custody, I discovered just how far Vanessa's network reached, and how determined they were to silence me before I could testify. By sunrise my brownstone no longer felt like a home. Boxes of evidence were gone, blinds drawn, coffee mugs abandoned where the agents had left them. A black SUV idled outside with 2 agents inside, Agent Brooks and Agent Smith, ready to move me to a safe location. Michael stood by the door, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He looked like a boy again, caught between wanting to come with me and wanting to run. Mom, this is insane, he whispered. Witness protection? FBI agents? This isn't our life. I zipped my coat. No, Michael, this is Vanessa's life spilling into ours. And if we don't stand up to it now, we'll never get ours back. Agent Brooks stepped forward. Mrs. Carter, the Bureau has secured a townhouse in Lower Manhattan. Nondescript. Private entrance. 24-hour detail. You'll stay there until the grand jury hearing next week. I nodded. Fine, but I'm not some porcelain doll. I can make my own coffee. That earned me a flicker of a smile from Agent Smith. We wouldn't dare stop you, ma'am. As they ushered me toward the SUV, a cold wind knifed through the street. Across the road, a man in a dark hat ducked behind a parked van. Just a glimpse, but my gut recognized the posture, the same man who'd knocked on my door. Agents, I murmured. 9 o'clock. Smith turned, hand on his hip. The man melted into the morning crowd like steam. Persistent, Brooks muttered. All the more reason to move you now. Michael followed us to the car. I'm coming too, he said firmly. Agent Brooks shook her head. We can protect your mother. You're not under threat. Michael's jaw tightened. I'm her son. I've already lost my father to a heart attack and my wife to a prison cell. I'm not letting her go through this alone. I touched his arm. Michael, this is your chance to show me who you are. If you want to protect me, start by cooperating. Stay here. Work with Victor. Feed the agents anything you remember about Vanessa's contacts. That's how you help. His eyes shone with unshed tears. Mom? I'll be fine, I said softly. For the first time in a long time, I'm not the one in danger of disappearing. I climbed into the SUV. The door shut with a heavy thunk that sounded like a chapter closing. But inside that safe house, as agents combed through Vanessa's encrypted files, we found something even darker, proof that her network reached into the police department itself. The safe house wasn't much to look at, just a narrow brick townhouse wedged between a shuttered deli and a laundromat that smelled faintly of bleach. Inside, it was stripped bare, beige walls, one couch, a lamp that flickered if you breathed too hard. The kind of place designed for silence, not comfort. Agent Brooks set up her laptop at the dining table. Agent Smith took first watch near the window, his hand never far from his holster. I lowered myself into a chair, the springs squeaking like they hadn't been sat on since Nixon. Brooks slid in another flash drive they'd seized from Vanessa's cache. This one was tougher, double encryption, but our techs cracked it this morning. The screen filled with spreadsheets, emails, even scanned documents with police letterheads. My stomach dropped. What is that? I asked. Brooks's face was grim. Internal memos, stolen case files. Mrs. Reed had a direct line to someone inside the NYPD. Smith muttered from the window. That explains why her pawns never got flagged. She had protection. Scrolling further, Brooks opened a folder labeled Friends. Dozens of names appeared, some familiar, some not. A few had badges next to them, literal little icons Vanessa must have added for her own organization. "Are you telling me," I whispered, "that my daughter-in-law was bribing cops?" Victor Hall had joined us by then. Late as usual but carrying his eternal leather folder. He looked at the screen and sighed. Not bribing, collaborating. These officers funneled her tips. Erased surveillance. Buried reports. That's how she ran her operation so long without a hiccup. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles whitened. Vanessa Reed, who once complained that my curtains were depressing, had been paying off men in uniform while sipping my coffee. Brooks looked me dead in the eye. "Mrs. Carter, this makes your testimony even more crucial. We're not just dismantling a theft ring anymore. We're exposing corruption inside the department. That means the pushback will be stronger. And the threats against you, louder." For a flicker of a moment, doubt stabbed me. 71. Wrinkled hands. A body that creaked louder than the floorboards. Was I really meant to stand against cops and criminals alike? Then I remembered Vanessa's notes. The ones cataloging my grocery trips and medicine bottles. Preparing to declare me senile. She wanted me erased. And if I stayed quiet now, she'd get her wish. I straightened, voice steady. "Then I'll speak louder. Let every crooked cop and thief in this city hear me. If I was invisible once, it's only because I chose not to shine." Smith glanced over his shoulder with a rare grin. "Lady, you're tougher than half the rookies we train." But later that night, just as I started to believe I was safe, a bullet cracked through the safe house window, proof that Vanessa's friends weren't waiting for the courtroom. The first sound was a sharp pop, followed by the crash of glass exploding across the living room floor. I dropped to my knees instinctively, my heart slamming against my ribs. Agent Smith was already on the ground, weapon drawn, shouting, "Down, down." Agent Brooks grabbed my arm and yanked me behind the heavy oak table. Another shot cracked, splintering the cheap lamp into sparks. "Sniper," Smith barked, eyes scanning through the fractured blinds. Angles across the street, second or third floor. The whole safe house seemed to hold its breath. Outside, tires screeched, then silence. Whoever fired those shots had already melted back into the city. My hands trembled as I brushed glass from my sweater. "So much for safe house," I muttered, my voice quivering more from anger than fear. Brooks touched her earpiece. "We need extraction, now. Target has eyes on this location." Within minutes, backup swarmed the block, sirens, floodlights, agents in tactical gear sweeping the rooftops. Neighbors peeked from curtains, faces pale under the glow. Victor Hall slipped in through the back entrance. Unfazed as always, he crouched beside me, his leather folder tucked under one arm. "Mrs. Carter, you all right?" "I'm fine," I snapped, though my pulse was galloping. A little older, a little angrier, but fine. Smith holstered his gun, jaw tight. "This wasn't random. They know exactly where we are." Brooks nodded grimly, which means someone fed them the address. A leak inside law enforcement. My stomach turned. Vanessa's friends, the corrupted cops from her files. They weren't waiting for a trial, they were cleaning house. Michael burst through the door seconds later, escorted by a frantic young agent. His face was pale, his hair disheveled. "Mom, are you okay?" I heard. I stood, brushing shards from my skirt. "I'm not dead, Michael, though apparently, that was the plan." He swallowed hard, then looked at the bullet hole that had torn straight through Mario's framed photograph I'd insisted on bringing with me. They tried to kill you." I placed a hand on his arm. "Son, they failed, and now they've given me something stronger than fear, righteous fury." Brooks turned to me. "Mrs. Carter, this changes the game. From this moment on, you're not just a witness. You're a target in an active conspiracy. We need to move you to a federal facility." I lifted my chin, my voice firm. "Then move me wherever you must. But hear me clearly, I will not be silenced. Not by Vanessa, not by her friends, not even by a bullet." Yet even as I vowed to fight, I couldn't shake the truth gnawing at me. Vanessa hadn't pulled the trigger. Which meant someone else, higher up in her network, had just declared war. By dawn the next morning, I was on the move again. A black van with no markings whisked me out of Manhattan under a web of flashing lights and decoy cars. Like something from a spy thriller. Inside, Agent Brooks sat across from me. Laptop open, jaw clenched. Agent Smith rode up front, radioing in our new route every few minutes. Michael hadn't been allowed to come this time. Victor Hall stayed behind to keep digging through Vanessa's contacts. I sat on the cold metal bench, hands folded in my lap, staring at the bulletproof glass. 71 years old, and suddenly I was living inside a crime novel. Brooks closed her laptop with a soft snap. Mrs. Carter, we're taking you to a federal facility in Westchester. Private wing, high security, no one gets in without clearance. I gave her a thin smile. Sounds lovely. Will they serve tea? A flicker of a grin passed over her face. We'll see what we can do. But underneath the banter, I felt the tremor of reality. Someone had sent a shooter after me. Not Vanessa, she was locked up. Someone higher. Someone who'd built this network and didn't appreciate their favorite infiltrator flipping on them. Agent Brooks, I said quietly. These people, they've been robbing for years. Hiding in plain sight. If they're willing to kill me to stay hidden, what happens when the trial starts? Brooks's expression hardened. That's why we're moving you now. And why the DA wants your testimony sealed until the last possible moment. You're not just a witness anymore. Mrs. Carter, you're the match that could burn their whole house down. I looked down at my hands, Mario's wedding ring still on my finger. The skin wrinkled but steady. For 10 years Vanessa tried to make me small, invisible, harmless. She'd turned my house into her stage. Now the curtain was up. And for once, I was center stage. Outside, gray suburbs rolled past. A new safe house, a new chapter, and deep down, under the fear, something unexpected was blooming, a sense of purpose. I'll testify, I said, more to myself than to Brooks. No matter what it costs. They think I'm a pawn. They're about to find out I'm the queen. Brooks nodded slowly. Good, because once you're in Westchester, the DA will bring you up to speed on the indictments. We've started unsealing charges. Some very big names are about to fall. I took a breath, feeling Mario's presence like a steady hand on my shoulder. Let them fall. But I didn't know yet that in that Westchester facility, supposed to be my fortress, I'd discover a betrayal even closer than Vanessa. One that would cut deeper than any bullet. The Westchester facility was nothing like the Brooklyn brownstone I called home. No creaky staircases, no smell of Mario's pipe tobacco lingering in the curtains. Just white walls, metal doors, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Safe, yes, but sterile, like living inside a locked filing cabinet. Agent Brooks showed me to a small suite, one bed, one desk, a bathroom with a shower that whistled like a tea kettle. You'll have privacy here, Mrs. Carter, she said. 2 agents outside your door at all times. No visitors without clearance. I nodded, though the word privacy felt ironic. For 10 years Vanessa had invaded every corner of my life. Now the government was guarding me so fiercely I couldn't even fetch a glass of water without someone checking the hallway first. That night, as I sat by the desk reading through my notes for the DA, there was a knock, not the brisk rap of an agent, but a soft, careful tap. It's me, Michael's voice whispered. I frowned, opening the door a crack. He slipped inside quickly, glancing both ways before shutting it. Michael, how on earth? You weren't supposed to be allowed in. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. One of the guards let me through. Said I looked harmless enough. Mom, I couldn't stay away. I studied him carefully. His eyes were bloodshot, his tie crooked, the weight of guilt heavy on his frame. You shouldn't risk this. Not now. I know, he murmured, sinking into the chair opposite me. But Mom, there's something I have to confess. My stomach tightened. He rubbed his temples, voice breaking. Vanessa, she didn't just manipulate me. She used me. Some of the financial records they're investigating? They're in my name. Bank accounts I thought were for our joint savings. Loans I never signed, but my signature's on them. Mom, I think I'm tied to her crimes. I froze, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry bees. My son, the boy I raised. The man who let his wife belittle me wasn't just a bystander. He was a liability. Michael, I whispered, did you ever help her knowingly? He shook his head, tears brimming. No, but ignorance doesn't matter, does it? They'll think I was complicit. And maybe I was. By keeping silent all these years, I gave her cover. I closed my eyes. For 10 years, I blamed Vanessa for making me invisible. But the truth was harsher. Michael had let me disappear. When I opened them again, my voice was steel. Son, if you want redemption, you'll have to fight for it. No more excuses, no more silence. You stand beside me in court and tell the truth, or you'll be buried with her lies. Michael bowed his head, shoulders shaking. I will, Mom, I swear I will. I reached across the table, gripping his trembling hand. Then maybe, just maybe, you'll earn back what you've lost. But neither of us realized that someone inside this very facility had already sold my location to Vanessa's allies, and danger was about to walk straight through the guarded door. At 3:17 a.m., the hallway outside my room went unnervingly quiet. Usually there was the shuffle of boots, the low murmur of agents trading shifts, the creak of the old radiator. Tonight, nothing. Michael was asleep on the small sofa, his jacket draped over his face. I sat upright on the bed, my heart thudding for no reason I could name. Then I heard it, the faintest click. Not a door closing, a lock being overridden. I slipped off the bed and padded to the door. Through the peephole, I saw one of the guards, Agent Daniels, standing stiffly with his keycard. His jaw clenched as a tall man in a gray hoodie whispered something into his ear. The stranger passed him a small envelope. My blood went cold. Bribery. Here, in the safe house. I turned back to Michael and hissed. Wake up. He groaned, blinking blearily. Mom, what? Shush. I pointed to the door. The metallic rasp of the lock echoed as someone slid a card. I grabbed the only weapon at hand, the heavy lamp from the nightstand, and raised it. My knees shook but my grip was firm. The door cracked open. A man in the hoodie stepped inside first, eyes scanning, a glint of steel under his sleeve. Behind him, Agent Daniels stood like a statue, face pale. Mrs. Carter, the intruder said softly, closing the door with his foot. You're coming with us, quietly. Michael sat bolt upright, eyes wide. Who the hell are you? The man smiled faintly. An insurance policy. Mrs. Reed sends her regards. My jaw tightened. Vanessa. Even from a cell she was still reaching for me. I'm not going anywhere, I said, lamp raised like a club. Not with you. The man chuckled. Ma'am, you're 71. Put the lamp down before you hurt yourself. I took one step forward. Voice steady. Son, stay behind me. Michael scrambled up, fists clenched but trembling. You're not taking her. For a beat, no one moved. Then the man lunged. I swung the lamp with everything I had. It smashed against his forearm with a dull thud, the bulb shattering in a spray of sparks. He hissed, dropping the small blade he'd been hiding. Michael dove, grabbing the weapon and kicking it across the floor. Outside, someone finally shouted. Code red. Footsteps thundered. The intruder tried to bolt, but I threw my weight against the door, slamming it shut just as Brooks and Smith burst in from the other side with guns drawn. On the ground, Smith roared. The man hesitated, then froze as red laser dots lit his chest. He dropped to his knees. Brooks cuffed him while glaring at Agent Daniels. You're done, she snapped. Hand over your weapon. Daniels's face crumpled as he surrendered his sidearm. They threatened my family. He stammered. I didn't know they'd. You knew enough. Brooks snarled. I stood in the wreckage of the room. Shards of lamp at my feet. My hands still trembling from the swing. Michael stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Mom, he whispered. You didn't even flinch. Inside, I was shaking like a leaf. But my voice came out iron. They think I'm invisible. They keep forgetting I built this house. Raised this family. Survived worse than bullets. I'm done being quiet. What none of us realized, though, was that the man in the hoodie wasn't just a hired thug. He was carrying a phone loaded with evidence that could blow Vanessa's entire network wide open, or destroy me with one leak. The intruder's phone lay on the floor. Screen cracked from the scuffle. Agent Smith scooped it up with gloved hands, tossing it into an evidence bag. Brooks crouched beside the cuffed man, her voice like ice. Name. He smirked, blood trickling from the cut on his arm where the lamp had struck. Names don't matter. I'm just a messenger. Smith pressed harder on his shoulder. Try again. But it wasn't his words that chilled me, it was the look in his eyes. Calm. Too calm for someone who'd just failed an assassination attempt. He wasn't worried about prison. He was waiting. Brooks unsealed the evidence bag and powered up the phone. Her brow furrowed almost instantly. This isn't just messages. She turned the screen toward us. Even through the spiderweb of cracks, I could see rows of files, neatly labeled, Op Carter, Op Sloan, Op V, each one timestamped. Op Carter? I whispered, my stomach sinking. Brooks tapped it open. My face filled the screen, photos of me watering the roses. Shopping at the market, sitting on the porch with Mario years ago. Dozens of them, some recent, some I'd never even known were taken. My chest tightened. They've been watching me for years. Michael stepped closer, his voice ragged. Mom, that's... He broke off, his hand trembling as he pointed at another folder. Open that one. Op V. Brooks hesitated, then tapped. This time it wasn't me, it was Vanessa. Dozens of recordings, her voice. Her meetings, her hand passing envelopes to men in suits. Smith leaned over, his face hardening. Well, I'll be damned. She wasn't just the middleman. She was orchestrating deals, setting targets, giving orders. Michael looked between us, his face pale. So, wait, you're telling me Vanessa was being watched too? By her own people? Brooks's lips pressed tight. No, not her own people. By someone above her. This phone, it's not his. He's just the delivery boy. Whoever's running this operation has been tracking all of you. Mrs. Reed wasn't the top of the pyramid. She was just another pawn. The man in cuffs laughed softly, shaking his head. Now you're starting to get it. Vanessa was never in charge. She was just good at playing queen on a borrowed board. I felt the room tilt, my breath catching in my chest. For years I thought Vanessa was the worst villain in my life. But this phone, this evidence, it pointed to something bigger. Something scarier. Brooks's voice cut through the silence. Mrs. Carter, if what's on this device is real, we're dealing with a network far larger than we imagined. And you, she fixed me with a sharp gaze. You're at the center of it, whether you like it or not. Michael placed a shaking hand on my shoulder. Mom, what if this doesn't end with Vanessa? I met his eyes, the old steel rising in me. Then it ends with me. But when Brooks dug deeper into the files, she uncovered a name I never expected, a family name tied not to Vanessa, but to Mario. My late husband. Brooks's fingers hovered over the cracked screen as she scrolled. Wait, she murmured. These files, they're organized by family names. Smith leaned in, brow furrowed. Vanessa Reed, Carter, Sloan, and... Brooks stopped. Her eyes flicked up to mine. Mrs. Carter, does the name Mario Vance mean anything to you? I felt the air leave my lungs. That's my husband's full name. Mario Vance Carter. Why? Brooks turned the phone so I could see. A folder labeled Vance, priority glowed back at me. Inside were scanned letters, contracts, handwritten notes, even photographs of Mario decades younger, standing with men in tailored suits I didn't recognize. My throat went dry. Those are my husband's journals. His ledgers. Where did they get these? Michael stepped closer, face pale. Mom, did Dad ever tell you what he was involved in before he met you? I shook my head slowly. Memories flickering. Mario coming home late from meetings. The safe behind our bedroom painting he never let me open. The careful way he handled cash. He told me he'd done some consulting. Nothing illegal. Nothing to worry about. Brooks's voice was low. Mrs. Carter, according to these files, your husband wasn't just collecting antiques. He was connected, directly or indirectly, to the same black market pipeline Vanessa tapped into years later. She didn't discover this network on her own. She inherited the map. My knees went weak and I gripped the desk for balance. You're saying, Mario knew these people? Smith nodded grimly. Looks like he walked away decades ago. But his name stayed in their archives. And when Vanessa married into your family, she gained access to the same treasure trove he'd once managed to keep hidden. Michael's voice cracked. All this time, we thought Vanessa was clever. She was just digging through Dad's old ghosts. I closed my eyes. Flashes of Mario's warnings surfacing: keep everything private. Never flaunt wealth. Don't let anyone catalog what we own. I had thought he was just cautious. Now it sounded like fear. I tried to bury that past. I whispered, I thought I was protecting us. But by hiding it, I handed Vanessa the keys. Brooks set the phone down carefully. Mrs. Carter, this changes the stakes. You're not just a victim of Vanessa's crimes. You're the surviving witness to a network that stretches back at least 30 years. The people behind this, they might see you as the last loose end. I opened my eyes, steel replacing shock. Then let them come, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I've lived too long in the shadows of other people's choices. If Mario left me this legacy, I'm going to finish it. Clean it. End it. Michael took my hand. Mom, you're not alone. Not this time. I squeezed back. Then stand beside me, because this is going to be bigger than courtrooms and cameras. As Brooks dug deeper into the Vance folder, one name surfaced again and again, an heir to the very empire Mario had walked away from, and that heir had already reached out to me without my realizing it. Brooks scrolled deeper into the Vance folder. Her eyes narrowed. Here, she said, pointing to a repeated signature at the bottom of multiple documents. This name appears in every transaction, every antique deal, every off-the-books appraisal. Adrian Cole Vance. My heart stuttered. Adrian Cole? Michael frowned. Wait, isn't that the man who wrote to you a few months ago? The family historian, who said he was putting together a book about Mario's early life? I felt my stomach drop. A polite letter on cream stationery. An elegant signature. A request to meet, someday soon, to discuss my husband's legacy. At the time, I had brushed it off as a harmless curiosity. Oh, God, I whispered, he's already reached out to me. Brooks opened a separate file marked correspondence. There, scanned and highlighted, was my own address. Notes in the margin. Approach gently. Widow holds key to unrecovered inventory. Gain trust. Michael's face went white. He's been grooming you, like Vanessa groomed me. Smith muttered from the corner. They're not amateurs. This is generational. I lowered myself into the chair. Hands trembling but mind sharpening. If Adrian is the heir, then Vanessa marrying into our family wasn't random. It was a plan. A long-term plan. Brooks nodded grimly. We believe Adrian funds the very network Vanessa was working for. She was his inside woman, his way into your home. You're safe. Your entire collection. And now that she's in prison, you're his last chance at the rest of the fortune. I pressed my palms together. Then this is what we do. We stop playing defense. Brooks raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning, I said slowly. If Adrian Cole Vance thinks he's drawing me into his story, I'm going to write the ending myself. Michael swallowed hard. Mom, that sounds dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. I replied, but I'm done being the woman they manipulate from the shadows. Adrian wanted me to meet him. Let's give him what he wants, but on our terms. Smith crossed his arms. A sting. Brooks glanced at him, then back at me. Mrs. Carter, if you're serious, we can coordinate with the Bureau. But you'll need to be careful. He's patient. He's been circling for years. I felt Mario's ring on my finger. The weight of its history. Then it's time to show him exactly who he's circling. I've spent a lifetime being underestimated. Michael's eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and awe. Mom, you're really going to bait him? I turned to my son. My voice quiet but certain. I'm going to finish what your father couldn't. And you're going to stand beside me when we do it. But when the FBI set the trap for Adrian Cole Vance, we discovered a twist none of us expected. Adrian wasn't coming alone. He was bringing someone from inside my own circle. The trap was simple on paper. But in practice it felt like walking into a hurricane with a match. The Bureau booked a private room at an old Hudson Valley Inn. The kind with creaky floors and chandeliers that looked like they hadn't been dusted since Prohibition. They dressed it up as a family archive meeting. complete with a fake display of my husband's unrecovered antiques. Brooks went over the plan one last time as she clipped a tiny mic to my collar. You sit here. You do exactly what you'd do if you were really meeting a genealogist. We'll be in the adjacent suite. Audio and video running. At your signal, we come in. Smith handed me a slim black case. Inside was one of Mario's old pocket watches, non-functional, but still heavy and reassuring. We'll be right behind the wall, he said. You're not alone in this. Michael was pacing like a caged lion. I still don't like it. Mom, you shouldn't be the bait. I reached out, squeezing his hand. Michael, for 10 years I've been the prey. Today I'm choosing to be the hunter. At 11:02 a.m., a black sedan rolled up the gravel drive. Through the lace curtains, I caught a glimpse of Adrian Cole Vance, tall, silver-haired, immaculate in a charcoal coat. He looked like a banker or a professor, not the heir to a criminal network. But the man who stepped out behind him froze my blood. Michael, I whispered, my grip tightening on his hand. Do you see him? Michael's eyes widened. No, it can't be. Walking half a step behind Adrian was Victor Hall, our own lawyer. The man who'd been at my side since this began. The man who had always just happened to know the right contacts. The right timing. He carried his leather folder like always. His expression unreadable. Brooks's voice crackled softly in my earpiece. Mrs. Carter, do you confirm visual? I confirm, I murmured. Our mole just walked in. Michael whispered, furious. Victor? He's been with us this whole time. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing my voice steady. He's been with me this whole time, feeding Adrian everything he needed. The door opened. Adrian smiled warmly, extending a hand as if we were meeting at a church social. Mrs. Carter, he said, his voice rich and smooth. It's an honor at last. We're practically family. I glanced past him at Victor. His eyes flickered, something between shame and challenge. I set the pocket watch on the table between us, the way Brooks had instructed. Then sit, Mr. Vance, I said coolly. Let's talk about family. Behind the wall, I imagined Brooks and Smith leaning forward, fingers on their triggers. The stage was set. But as Adrian began to speak, it became clear he hadn't come to threaten me. He'd come to offer me a seat at the very table Mario once walked away from, and Victor was ready to seal the deal. Adrian eased into the chair across from me as if it were his throne. He didn't even glance at the fake antiques on display. He already knew what was real and what wasn't. Instead, his gaze fixed on me, sharp and calculating, like a jeweler appraising a stone. Mrs. Carter, he said, folding his hands neatly, you have something that belongs to us. To me, but I'm not here to steal. And I'm not here to threaten. I'm here to invite. Michael stiffened beside me. Invite her to what? Another prison sentence? Another decade of lies? Adrian smiled faintly, as though Michael's outburst amused him. No, young man. To continuity. To legacy. Your father, Mario, understood the value of structure. He built bridges between collectors and less conventional markets. He wasn't just a participant. Mrs. Carter, he was a founder. And you, whether you realize it or not, inherited his seat. The words hit me like cold water. A founder? Victor finally spoke, his voice calm, smooth, betraying none of the betrayal Michael and I felt. Dolores, Mario wasn't simply protecting antiques. He was protecting investments. He stepped away for you. But the foundation remained. Adrian is here to offer you what Mario denied, recognition, power. I stared at him, betrayal clawing at my chest. Victor, you've sat in my living room, eaten at my table, sworn to defend me, and all this time, you were grooming me for this? His expression softened, almost pitying. I was protecting you. The truth was going to find you eventually. Better to face it with allies than enemies. Adrian leaned forward, voice silk and steel. You've proven yourself more resilient than anyone anticipated. You've outlasted Vanessa, dismantled her schemes, even turned the Bureau into your shield. That's precisely why I need you. The network is fracturing. With your name, Mario's name, we can rebuild stronger. Michael slammed his fist against the table. She's not joining you. She's not some piece of your empire. Adrian's smile widened, but his eyes stayed cold. And yet she's already at the table. The question isn't whether she has a place here, Mr. Carter. The question is whether she chooses to accept it, or let someone else take it by force. I felt the pocket watch heavy in my hand. Mario's initials etched into the brass. A symbol of the man I loved, and the secrets he left behind. I straightened, my voice clear. Mr. Vance, Mario may have helped build your world. But I am not Mario. I don't traffic in shadows. If you came here to recruit me, you've already failed. For the first time, Adrian's smile faltered, just slightly. Victor's jaw tightened. Dolores, think carefully. Once you say no, there's no going back. I leaned forward, matching Adrian's gaze. I already went back once. For 10 years I let myself be silent. Invisible. Never again. If this is your empire, then hear me clearly. I'll burn it down before I let it claim me. Behind the wall, I knew Brooks was listening, waiting for my signal. But before I could give it, Adrian dropped a final bombshell. Mario hadn't just walked away from the Empire. He had left behind a secret ledger, and Adrian claimed I was the only person alive who could unlock it. Adrian's hand moved like a conductor's, slow, precise, toward a leather folio he'd set on the table. He opened it with the kind of care one uses for delicate glass. Inside lay a slim, battered notebook, pages yellowed, edges thumbed, Mario's handwriting crawling across every line. You see this? Adrian said, sliding the book toward me as if offering a relic. This is Mario's ledger. He didn't just collect objects, he kept a map, codes, contacts, appraisals, hidden caches. He trusted no one enough to hand it over. Except, it seems, fate did. You, or someone close, holds the only key to read what's here. My fingers hovered over the leather as if I could burn on touch. I knew that handwriting. Mario had written love notes in the margins of my recipes, jotted garden plans on scrap paper, scribbled prices and names in a tiny, precise script. To see it here, so intimate, so exposed, felt like someone had opened our bedroom window and read our private letters aloud. Adrian's voice softened, theatrical. The ledger is encrypted with a cipher only Mario taught to the people he trusted. He taught it with a phrase, a habit, something so ordinary you'd never think to hide meaning in it. You know the phrase, Evelyn, or at least it seems you did once. Victor's eyes flicked to mine, pleading with that same steady, false gentleness. Michael's face crumpled as if someone had finally revealed the last cruel trick he hadn't wanted to face. I thought of Mario whistling while he sanded a chair, of the way he always tucked a folded handkerchief into the left breast pocket of his jackets. I remembered the lullaby he hummed in the kitchen when dinner burned and the quiet phrase he said before he kissed me goodnight, always the light. Small, stupid secrets, the sort of thing a husband says that becomes a life's punctuation. Tell us the phrase, Adrian coaxed. Let the ledger breathe again. Or refuse. And we walk out. But know this, we have ways of convincing people to cooperate. Ways you've already seen. My pulse thudded in my throat. I could feel the mic pinned to my collar. The wire tucked like a seam into my blouse. Brooks and Smith listening from the wall. I had a choice. Give them the key and step into a different kind of darkness. Or keep it close and trust the law to pry it loose without handing the map to the fox. Either way, Adrian's people would not wait politely. I set my palm flat on the table and looked at Adrian as if measuring stone. Mario taught me many things, I said slowly, but the things that mattered most were never meant for strangers who traffic in other people's pain. My voice didn't shake. If this ledger is as dangerous as you say, then it doesn't get used to rebuild what stole from families. It gets used to finish what you started, bring the network down. Not prop it up. Adrian's expression didn't change, but behind his eyes I saw the calculation of a man learning a plan had gone sideways. Victor, for a fleeting second, looked disgraced as if a tide had turned under his feet. You're sentimental, Adrian said at last, closing the folio with a soft snap. That could be noble, or it could be naive. I tapped the pocket watch. Mario's initials caught the light. Call it what you like. But I don't hand my husband's life to a man whose moral compass stops at profit. Behind the wall, a muffled cough. Brooks. waiting for me to finish. My signal, my moment. I sat up straighter, voice steady and loud enough to reach every hidden ear. Adrian Cole Vance, I said, eyes locked on his. If you want that book read, you'll read it under oath. In court, with cameras and with agents and with every name you've seared into your ledgers revealed to the light. No backroom deals, no quiet auctions, testimony and truth, public and complete, or nothing. That's my price. Adrian's smile thinned until it was almost a line. He folded his hands, palms up, an offering or an admission. Very well, Mrs. Carter, you have spirit. We'll see how it fares in daylight. As Adrian rose to leave, Victor lingered a heartbeat too long by my chair, then, in a whisper meant only for me, he offered something no one else could, a secret confession that would force my hand in ways I hadn't foreseen. Victor's shadow lingered over my chair even as Adrian straightened his coat. His leather folder was tucked under one arm, his face the same unreadable mask he'd worn since the day I met him. But as Adrian moved toward the door, Victor bent down, his lips close enough to my ear that only I could hear. His whisper was steady, almost reverent. Evelyn, I was the one who showed Vanessa the safe. The words sliced sharper than any blade. My breath caught, my body stiffened, and for a moment I forgot the mic clipped to my collar. Forgot Brooks and Smith listening. Victor continued, voice low and deliberate. She never would have found it without me. Mario told me about it years ago. Before he died, I thought if I guided her, if I managed what she took, I could protect you from worse. I thought keeping the network pacified would keep you alive. I turned my head just enough to see his eyes. They weren't cruel or triumphant. They were tired, haunted. You betrayed me, I whispered. His jaw flexed, but he didn't deny it. I betrayed Mario first, and I've been carrying it every day since. Adrian thinks I serve him. Vanessa thought I served her. But the truth is, I've been serving guilt. Every move I made, every piece I gave her, was an attempt to pay a debt I never could. The blood roared in my ears. For 10 years I thought Vanessa's cunning had outmaneuvered me. And here, standing in a starched suit at my side, was the man who had opened the first door. Adrian turned back, his hand on the doorknob. Is there a problem, Victor? Victor straightened, mask slipping back on. None at all. Brooks's voice crackled faintly in my earpiece. We got that. Every word. Do not react. Let him walk out. I forced my fingers to unclench from the pocket watch. My voice came out even, though my chest felt like stone. Then I suppose this meeting is finished. Adrian inclined his head, all false grace, for now. When they left, the door shut with a click that felt more final than a gunshot. Brooks and Smith burst in seconds later, weapons raised, eyes scanning. You okay? Brooks demanded. I nodded, though my pulse was racing. No bullets this time, just daggers. Michael was trembling with rage. Mom, he admitted it. Victor betrayed us, betrayed Dad. We have to. Not yet. I cut in, surprising myself with the sharpness of my tone. If we show our hand too soon, we lose him, and he knows more than he's saying. Much more. Brooks studied me with that piercing gaze of hers. So what's your plan? I held up the pocket watch. Its brass gleaming under the chandelier's dust-clouded light. Mario built a world of shadows. Victor tried to survive it. Vanessa tried to profit from it. Adrian wants to rebuild it. But me? I'll use their own secrets to tear it down. Michael swallowed hard. Mom, what if the truth about Dad destroys everything? I closed my eyes for a moment, then opened them with steel. Then let it destroy everything but us. But just as I thought I had steadied myself, Brooks revealed the FBI's next move, a public hearing where I would face Adrian, Victor, and the ledger, under oath, with the entire city watching. The news came in a sterile conference room with blinds drawn tight. Brooks stood at the head of the table, her laptop glowing blue against the gray walls. Smith leaned in the corner, arms crossed, his silence saying more than words. Michael sat beside me, restless, like he wanted to argue with a storm. Brooks cleared her throat. Mrs. Carter, the Bureau has decided on the next step. The district attorney is calling for a public hearing. Congressional level, televised. You, Adrian Cole Vance, And her eyes flicked to Michael, your lawyer. Victor Hall. I felt the words land like bricks on my chest. You mean to tell me, I said slowly, that I'll be forced to sit across from the very men trying to dismantle my life, and answer their questions under oath? Brooks's voice was firm, but not unkind. Yes, the ledger will be introduced as evidence. The prosecution believes you're the only one who can authenticate it. Without you, the case collapses. With you, we have a shot at burning this network to the ground. Michael shot up from his chair. That's insane. You're putting my mother on stage like a sacrificial lamb. Everyone watching, Adrian's people, Vanessa's allies. What's to stop them from turning the hearing into a circus? Smith finally spoke, his voice like gravel. That's exactly the point. Sunlight. These people thrive in shadows. You drag them into the open. Half their power evaporates. I stared at the table. My reflection warped in the metal surface. For years I'd been invisible. Dismissed. Humiliated. Now they wanted me visible in the loudest way possible, broadcast into living rooms. My every word recorded, dissected, spun. Mrs. Carter, Brooks said gently, we won't force you, but without your testimony, Adrian walks free. And Victor, he slips right back into the system. You know what that means. I clenched Mario's pocket watch in my fist until the edge bit my skin. I know exactly what it means. It means every lie they told, every theft they committed, every humiliation I endured would be buried with me. No, I lifted my chin, steel lacing my voice. If this city needs a witness, they'll have one. And if Adrian and Victor think they can corner me, they're about to learn what happens when you back a woman into the light. Michael grabbed my hand, his grip trembling. Mom, please, if you do this, you can't just speak as Dad's widow. You'll have to speak as the woman they underestimated. Every word will matter. I squeezed his hand back. Then every word will be a blade. Brooks shut the laptop with a decisive snap. The hearing is in 48 hours. Prepare yourself, Mrs. Carter, because once you step behind that microphone, there will be no shadows left to hide in. But what none of us expected was that before the hearing even began, Victor would make a desperate move, one final betrayal that would put my life, and the truth, in mortal danger. The morning of the hearing arrived with a sky so sharp it seemed to slice through any pretense. Cameras lined the courthouse steps like a jury. Reporters clustered in tight, excited knots, and the city smelled faintly of rain and something else, anticipation. Inside the hearing room, lights buzzed and microphones hungrily leaned forward. I sat at the witness table with Mario's pocket watch folded into my palm. A small talisman that steadied me more than any agent's reassurance could. Michael sat behind me, a silent guardian who'd learned, finally, how to stand up. Brooks and Smith sat to my left, the DA's team. Crisp and ready. To my right, across the room, Adrian Cole Vance's face was a study in composure, calm as a man who thinks he's already won. Victor Hall stood not far from him. Legal posture perfect. His expression a mask that didn't quite reach his eyes. The moment the gavel hit and the cameras turned their lenses toward the witness box, something changed. No longer was I the invisible woman eating in the kitchen. I was seen. The microphone filled with my voice. I told the whole story, about the pink diamond. The text that was as stupid as it was luck for me. The pawns Vanessa visited, the secret room in Mario's workshop, the flash drives, the encrypted files, and the ledger that bound all of it together. I told them about Victor's whisper in the inn. I spoke of the nights I sat on the terrace and pretended the hurt was only wind. I did not spare the little humiliations, the dinners where I was an afterthought. The condescending offers of retirement communities, because they mattered. They were the pattern that ended in betrayal. Adrian's lawyers tried everything. They called me sentimental. They suggested the ledger was a fabricated mystery invented to entrap the innocent. Victor took the stand and, astonishingly, began to unravel. Under careful questioning, the facade crumbled, his voice faltered as he tried to justify showing Vanessa the safe. As he tried to explain, managing, versus, enabling. The microphones didn't miss a quiver. The jurors and the public did not miss it, either. But the real turn came when Agent Brooks introduced the intercepted messages from the intruder's phone, the one that had tried to take me from the safe house. A map of the network lit up the courtroom. Names, dates, transfers. Adrian's signature appeared like a watermark in places he could not plausibly deny. Men who had thought themselves untouchable found their names read aloud into the record. Adrian's calm cracked. He rose to his feet. Tried to speak. But the room had already decided, whatever future capital he thought to marshal couldn't stand up to the floodlight of truth. Victor, when pressed, did the most dangerous thing a man in his position could do. He finally stopped protecting himself by protecting others. He apologized, stammered, admitted mistakes, and then, in a move that stunned everyone, offered up a confession complete with a list of contacts he'd promised the DA he would help identify. It wasn't courage so much as exhaustion. The weight of the ledger crushed him into honesty. By the time the hearing adjourned, the DA announced a string of indictments. Adrian was taken into custody. Several officers named in the files were put on administrative leave pending internal investigations. Vanessa's plea deal was voided and widened. Cooperation negotiated earlier meant less time. But it also meant more names, more arrests. The ledger's last pages opened like a long locked door. Outside, the crowd did what crowds do best. They cheered. They whispered. They recorded. Reporters cornered me with questions about dignity and justice and whether I felt vindicated. I thought of Mario, of hydrangeas, of years of polite invisibility. I thought of the women who had called me after the press conference, women who recovered pill bottles. Who hired private eyes, who finally stopped pretending they'd simply misplaced memories. You did it, Michael said later, his voice raw and small in the press of air. You made them answer. I smiled. A small, private thing. We did it, I corrected. Not me, us. The truth took us both, slow, stubborn, and loud, down the road to daylight. Weeks turned into months. The DA's office spun a web of prosecutions. The news cycle churned from scandal to scandal. I gave testimony, interviews, and eventually, reluctantly, a small television segment where I spoke about elder abuse, manipulation, and the quiet power of watching. From the ashes, the Dolores Foundation. No, not that name exactly. I refused to be Dolores for the rest of my life. Evelyn Carter's trust formed. With seed funding from recovered assets and an anonymous donor who'd watched the hearings and decided to give back. The foundation funded legal aid for seniors, public awareness campaigns, and a hotline that connected people to help before they lost everything. Vanessa, when she called me from prison months later, cried for the first time in a way that was not performance. I listened. I didn't forgive, but I listened. Michael filed for divorce. He rebuilt his life with a gentler partner who respected the past rather than trying to erase it. Victor testified, cooperated, and in the end, took less time than he might have, because truth, when given freely, is its own currency. On the first anniversary of the Plaza raid, I planted a small bed of roses in the garden Mario once tended. Each bloom a little louder than the years I'd spent apologizing for my presence. I wore a modest pink band on the third finger of my left hand, not the stolen ring. Not the one that had started the fight, but a simple band Mario once carved with his pocket knife when we were young. It was not about wealth. It was about memory and having the courage to guard it. In public, people called me brave. In private, I felt I had simply stopped pretending to be small. There's a particular satisfaction in outliving the assumptions people have about you and then using what you outlived to change things for the better. When the trials closed and the dust settled, a line in a children's book floated through my head: courage isn't loud, it's persistent. I had persisted. Visibility is power. Being quiet for safety's sake can become silence that hurts you. Speaking up, carefully, with evidence and allies, can dismantle systems that depend on secrecy. No one is beyond accountability. Money, influence, and charm can mask harm for a while. But truth has a tendency to catch up when you document and persist. Protecting elders is a community task. Families, friends, and institutions must look for patterns, not excuses. Small disappearances, jewelry, medicines, odd loans, can be red flags. Redemption is complicated, not guaranteed. Confessions don't erase harm, but they can be part of a repair process when coupled with responsibility and restitution. Use your hard-won voice. Survival is not always about revenge, it can be about creating systems to stop the same harm from happening to someone else.